Did you know you leave a part of yourself everywhere you go? Every step, every touch, even the briefest brush against a surface, leaves behind a silent signature. An invisible mark that tells a story about where you've been. Every day we shed around 40,000 skin cells, nearly 1 million a month. These tiny fragments drift away unnoticed, floating through the air and settling on everything we encounter. Most of us never think about it, but our bodies are constantly leaving behind a trail, a biological footprint that's uniquely ours. These invisible breadcrumbs usually mean nothing, but in the aftermath of a crime they can become the loudest voice in the room. What seems insignificant to us can be a goldmine for investigators, who know how to listen to what the silent witness has to say. Forensic science turns the impossibly small into the impossibly important. With the right tools and expertise, even the tiniest particle can become the key to solving a mystery. A single hair, a fiber, or a fingerprint can unravel the most complex crimes. These minute clues, often overlooked, can be the difference between a case going cold and justice being served. Investigators hunt for molecules, searching for the faint echoes left behind by someone who was there. They comb through scenes with patience and precision, knowing that even the smallest detail could be the breakthrough they need. It's a patient, painstaking process, far from the quick resolutions you see on TV. Real forensic work is slow, methodical, and demands unwavering attention to detail. Evidence hides in plain sight, in dust, under fingernails, or on a bullet casing. Sometimes it's buried in the most unexpected places, waiting for a trained eye to uncover it. For the untrained eye, it's nothing. For the forensic scientist, it's a treasure map. Each speck, each fiber is a clue that can lead to the truth. Every contact leaves a trace, and in that trace, a story waits to be told. The smallest interaction can become the most crucial evidence. Even the most careful criminal leaves something behind. No matter how meticulous, it's nearly impossible to erase every trace. And sometimes that tiny silent witness is all it takes to trap them. A single strand of hair or a microscopic fiber can be the thread that unravels an entire case. This is the real world of forensic science. It's a world where patience, technology, and human intuition come together to reveal the truth. Now let's look at a case that seemed like the perfect crime. The perpetrator thought they'd covered every track, erased every sign. Clues were so well hidden, so minuscule they were almost missed. But the smallest details can make the biggest difference. But relentless science and sharp investigators shone a light into the darkest corners. Their determination and expertise brought hidden evidence into the open. No matter how clever a criminal thinks they are, they always leave something behind. The silent witness is always there waiting to be found, and that's how the silent witness speaks. In the end, it's the smallest voices that can shout the loudest. Let's begin. Phoenix, Arizona. A town where neighbors know each other, where the sun sets over rows of tidy homes and the air is filled with the laughter of children. It's the kind of place where people leave their doors unlocked and trust is a way of life. Kids ride their bikes until sundown, racing down quiet streets, their parents watching from porches, never imagining danger could be lurking so close to home. But in December 1991, that peace was shattered in an instant, and the town's sense of safety was lost forever. Angela Brasso, just 22 years old, was found brutally murdered in her apartment. The news rippled through the community, leaving neighbors in shock and disbelief. Fear crept in, replacing the comfort they once knew. Police arrived to a scene of unimaginable violence. They began the painstaking process of collecting evidence, trying to piece together Angela's final hours, desperate for any clue that could explain such a senseless act. Detectives searched for motives: robbery, passion, random violence. But every theory led to a dead end, and the case grew more baffling with each passing day. The killer had been careful. No forced entry, no weapon left behind, no witnesses. It was as if the murderer had slipped in and out like a shadow, leaving almost nothing behind. Days turned to weeks, and weeks to months. The investigation stalled, and the case grew cold. The sense of unease in Phoenix only deepened. For Angela's family, grief and uncertainty lingered. Every day brought new pain and no answers. The town tried to move on, but a shadow remained, casting doubt and suspicion over every friendly face. Then, almost a year later, the nightmare returned. Another crime scene, another life lost. Melanie Burness, another young woman, was found murdered just miles from where Angela died. The similarities were chilling, and the community's fear turned to terror. The circumstances were eerily similar: too similar to be coincidence. Detectives realized they were dealing with something far more sinister. Phoenix was gripped by fear. A serial killer was at work, and no one knew who would be next. The press dubbed him the Canal Killer, and the name sent chills through the city. Police now had two horrific crimes, two grieving families, and a city on edge, desperate for answers and justice. But despite their efforts, they were no closer to finding their man. The investigation seemed to stall at every turn. The killer was a phantom, growing bolder with each passing day, taunting police and terrifying the city. The pressure to catch him was immense, and the entire city waited, holding its breath, for the nightmare to end. At both crime scenes, investigators were meticulous. They photographed, measured, and collected every potential piece of evidence. It's a slow, deliberate process. One chance to preserve the scene before it's lost forever. They searched for fingerprints, footprints, fibers, and hairs. Angela's apartment was full of potential clues, but the killer had wiped surfaces clean. No clear prints, no obvious signs of struggle. It felt like chasing a shadow. Melanie's crime scene, outdoors along the canal, brought new challenges. Evidence was exposed to the elements: wind, sun, and dust. The search area was vast, but investigators combed every inch. They collected soil, plant matter, and anything out of place. The principle of exchange says a criminal always leaves something behind. Investigators were certain the key was there, they just hadn't found it yet. The evidence was circumstantial, not enough to point to a single person. They needed something more, something definitive. The search continued, the case remained unsolved. Years slipped by, each one adding another layer of dust to the unsolved Canal Killer case. The Phoenix PD was haunted by the mystery, the weight of unanswered questions pressing on every detective who walked those halls. Evidence boxes sat in storage, silent reminders of two lives lost and a killer still at large. But science, always moving forward, offered a glimmer of hope. In the early 2000s, a determined detective decided to revisit the evidence, believing that new forensic technology might reveal what had once been invisible. Every scrap, every fiber, every trace was carefully sent to the lab for a fresh, thorough re-examination. Forensic technicians searched for invisible skin cells, tiny, nearly undetectable carriers of unique DNA, hoping to find something the original investigation had missed. Then, a breakthrough. Male DNA was discovered on one of the victims, a clue that had been impossible to detect with 1990s technology. The sample was once too small to analyze, but now, with advanced techniques, a full genetic profile could finally be created. For the first time, investigators had a concrete piece of the killer, a genetic fingerprint that could not be denied or erased. The DNA profile was entered into CODIS, the national database that connects crimes and criminals across the country. But there was no match. The suspect wasn't in the system. The database returned only silence, another dead end. It was another setback, but this time hope remained stronger than ever. They had the killer's DNA, a silent witness that could one day speak volumes. Now the challenge was clear. Find the person who matched this genetic code and finally bring justice to the victims. The hunt was back on, this time armed with their most powerful weapon, science. The silent witness had finally spoken. The investigation was re-energized, and the team felt a renewed sense of purpose. Science had given them a new lead, and with it, a new chance to solve the mystery that had haunted Phoenix for years. To catch the Canal Killer, investigators relied on two key tools, fingerprints and DNA. Fingerprints are unique, no two people have the same pattern. But criminals can wear gloves or wipe surfaces clean. That's where DNA comes in. DNA is found in almost every cell, blood, skin, saliva, hair, and is unique to each person. Scientists extract DNA from biological samples, then analyze specific regions to create a profile. This profile can be compared to suspects or searched in databases like CODIS. In the Canal Killer case, fingerprints failed. The killer was too careful, but he couldn't avoid shedding microscopic cells. The DNA clue, found years later, became the most important evidence. It was the thread that unraveled the case. Even when you can't see the evidence, it's there, waiting for the right technology and the right people. Science gave the victims a voice. While DNA was crucial in the Canal Killer case, many investigations rely on ballistics, the science of firearms. Every gun leaves unique markings on bullets and cartridge cases. Investigators compare these markings to linked bullets to specific guns. Even if the bullet isn't found, a spent cartridge case can be just as valuable. Ballistics can connect crimes, link suspects to weapons, and tell the story of a shooting. In cases with no witnesses, a bullet or cartridge case can be the only thing that speaks. Science uncovers the truth criminals try to hide. Every detail matters. The Canal Killer's DNA profile sat in the database for years. No hits. Then, forensic genetic genealogy emerged. Investigators uploaded the unknown DNA to a public genealogy database, hoping to find a relative. The goal: build a family tree and work down to the suspect. In 2015, Phoenix police tried it. A genetic genealogist found a partial match, a distant relative. Building a massive family tree, they traced every branch, eliminating those who didn't fit. They searched for a white male in Phoenix in the early 90s. After months, the tree narrowed to one small branch. 2 brothers remained. One of them was the Canal Killer. The haystack had been searched. The suspect was within reach. The breakthrough was near. The focus turned to Brian Patrick Miller. He fit the profile, right age, lived near the crime scenes. But suspicion wasn't enough. They needed his DNA. Police began surveillance, waiting for Miller to discard something with his DNA. The opportunity came at a restaurant. An undercover officer chatted with Miller. After Miller left, investigators collected his mug. The mug was rushed to the lab. DNA was extracted from the rim. The results: a perfect match to the Canal Killer's DNA. The silent witness had delivered its final testimony. Brian Patrick Miller was arrested in January 2015. Phoenix breathed a sigh of relief. The phantom had a name and a face. The case that haunted the city for decades was finally solved. Science had closed the net. Justice was within reach. Brian Patrick Miller's trial was a showcase of forensic science. The prosecution presented DNA evidence showing how a microscopic trace survived for decades. They explained genetic genealogy, how a family tree led to a killer. The defense tried to create doubt, but the DNA match was undeniable. The evidence placed Miller at the scene, linking him to the victims. The jury listened and understood. Justice was served. 2 families finally had answers. It was a victory for science and a reminder that no case is ever truly cold. Forensic scientists give a voice to those who cannot speak. Their work uncovers the truth no matter how well it's hidden. The next story might be even more unbelievable. Stay tuned for more tales from the world of forensic science.